I bought the Apple Vision Pro, have been using it basically nonstop for an entire week, and I don't regret it. And more importantly, I think I'm gonna keep it. You see, I've always been interested in the latest things that are happening in the VR, AR space. I've been doing videos on VR setups since 2016. There's a video on the channel of me hitting things in VR. I've had the Oculus Rift DK2, CV1, Oculus Quest, Oculus Rift S, Oculus Quest 2, and now the Oculus Quest 3. I've had a whole manner of HTC Vive stuff. I've also checked out augmented reality glasses. And I bought the Apple Vision Pro fully anticipating that I was going to return them within the 14-day window, because I thought there was no chance Apple would have created an experience that I haven't had before with the myriad of other devices that have come out. And boy, was I wrong. Not only did the Apple Vision Pro give me that unique experience that I didn't think I was going to get, but it's also the first device in the AR, mixed reality, virtual reality space where I went back not just for gaming and having fun, but also for work. I've spent multiple hours in this thing every single day since I've got it, and I have the desire to go back to it every single day after. And the original plan for this video was for me to go through the most disappointing things about the Apple Vision Pro. So I'm still going to keep that structure. This is going to be the 5 deal breakers of the Apple Vision Pro, but structured with the idea that every single thing the Apple Vision Pro does wrong, it also gets a whole lot right. So the biggest deal breaker that I was never going to address is the price. This thing is very expensive and it is not going to be worth it for the average consumer. $3,500 is a ridiculous amount to spend for something that you are uncertain of its future, uncertain of where Apple's going to take this, and if it doesn't deliver on ways for you to either get $3,500 of value out of it or allow you to make $3,500 in work, it's not going to be worth it to you in general. But also, $3,500 in the VR space, it is more expensive now because Meta has done a good job of bringing the Quest pricing down, but I'm from back in the day where you had to get a developer kit Oculus Rift and then also have to have a PC that was VR capable. It wasn't just the headset was a standalone device, it was also the PC you had to consider the entire time, and also back when they were trying to do VR backpacks, which were thousands of dollars in and of themselves. So if you're an average consumer, the price is going to scare you. If you're a VR enthusiast who's been around and been trying to make sure that you keep pace with all of this, the price honestly is just come to be expected with it. And I say all of this just to make sure you know where I'm coming from. I wanted to dislike this thing and I wanted to send it back. So let's get into my first deal breaker with the Apple Vision Pro, and that is the nighttime performance is bad. One of the things that I desire to have this for in videos that I've done on this channel are trying to create bed setups where I can game in bed while my wife consumes content and I do my own thing. And sometimes that involves my wife falls asleep before me, but I want to continue playing whatever I'm playing. So the lights go off, and unfortunately, in no light environments, this thing performs pretty badly. Tracking is lost very easily. It cannot keep track of your hands, despite the fact that it has IR sensors that are supposed to be able to do that. Many times when only a hallway light was on, it would tell me that tracking failed and that I was unable to continue to use it even while in bed. I was hoping that I would get worse performance at night. Maybe something slows down, it's less reliable. Not, it tells me that tracking failed. It's been a huge bummer that I've been unable to use it in actual dark conditions. I've had better experience with the Quest 3 in no light environments, and to see the Apple Vision Pro drop the ball here is a big disappointment. But that deal breaker comes with the fact that this thing in general performance is way faster. I thought Apple was blowing smoke when they discussed the idea of spatial computing and didn't want to use the terms augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality. And after spending time with this, I've just come to realize this is a MacBook on your face. They literally mean that you are going to use a computer that you can manipulate in your virtual environment. And everything about that is snappy, precise. As long as you have some light on, even if that's a reading lamp, it is incredible just how intuitive and fast to respond. Just pinch gestures to drag windows and place them where you want. And you can have a ton of apps running all at the same time. If I want to have Steam Link while watching the Twitch video, while reading Discord, while also being connected distracted my MacBook while also making sure I can scroll Twitter at some point and making sure that I have other widgets and gadgets open wherever I want. The Apple Vision Pro does not slow down. It just keeps chugging. If you compare that to something like the Quest 3, you are very limited on how many apps you can have open at once, where you can position them, how they can relate to each other. But with the Apple Vision Pro, I can accidentally leave my Discord down here in the office, go upstairs to my bedroom, and just quickly fetch it with a quick pinch. But in case I want to leave certain things in certain areas, like making sure Twitter stays on the toilet, then I can leave it there and it'll stay persistent across many instances. And I've seen people who commute to jobs. They have a station at home, and then when they get back to work, the Apple Vision Pro remembers everything as it was. And I'm even seeing videos of people who, when they use their standing desk, the apps actually go with the desk because it realizes that's where the app should be and that's what it's being tracked to. The Quest would never. It needs major software updates in order to support that, and the Vision Pro right out of the box does some really, really impressive things. The only things that I would like to see improve with this are kind of on the software side of things. I would love to have workspaces. If I could create a breakfast workspace that opens up the local news, gives me the daily weather, and also potentially opens up some of the other readings that I want to do. And then I have a gaming workspace that at my gaming station opens up my Steam link, opens up my Twitch links, and makes sure that I'm actually in gaming mode. And then also a work one, because the thing that the Apple Vision Pro lacks right now is persistence in apps if you happen to move them. You can't reset them to the position unless you physically move them back. And based on how good tracking is on the device, I could see Apple actually implementing this. And I would also like to be able to have multiple instances of the same app running at the same time, just because, again, of the spatial constraints. I would like to leave something down here in my basement. I would like to leave something in my bedroom. I would like to leave something in my living room, even if it's just our community Discord. You can't do that with the iPad compatible apps. You can have multiple windows of Safari open at the moment, but it seems to be very limited. However, I think this is something Apple can improve upon. All right, that's enough praise. Let's get to my second deal breaker. The field of view on this thing is very frustrating. It's super limited. iFixit's already done a teardown where they reveal it's about 100 degrees field of view. It is very limiting compared to something like the Quest 3. You do feel constrained. It does feel like you're looking through somebody holding binoculars over your eyes. So it feels less immersive and more constrained. And then to add to that, the pass-through of the cameras into your spatial reality is very poor. It all seems dull and boring compared to real life, despite the fact that the screens can get bright enough for content. It's not the problem of the displays where they can't actually replicate the lighting of real life, but every single time you take the Apple Vision Pro off in daylight, you realize, oh wow, it is way brighter out here than I thought it was. And that's even with certain environments that Apple has included that help you to kind of brighten up the internal setup. And pass-through is always high in noise, which makes sense because these are small sensors on the cameras, so they're going to have to increase that noise, but it is distracting. It's not as bad as the Quest 3. The Quest 3 definitely has higher ISO, but one of the worst things about the Vision Pro is motion blur is atrocious. If you quickly move your head, you quickly move your hand, or one of the things that I've been noticing lately is that if I'm watching my TV, if I move my head, something happens with the shutter speed on the cameras where my TV starts to flicker, but then as soon as I'm stationary, everything's fine. Just small things like that really break the immersion, make this way more difficult than it has to be. And speaking of immersion, when you get into the immersive environments, one of the very frustrating things there is that you can't see things that you're supposed to be interacting with. My watch does show up because Apple tries to track the hand so I can see what's going on there, but if I bust out my phone, my entire phone screen's covered. And then on top of that, because my face is covered, I can't unlock my phone with my facial recognition, so I have to either type in my passcode, which is arduous, or I have to lift up the headset to unlock it, and then sometimes the headset turns off because it realizes you took it off in order to do something else. And Apple prides itself on its ecosystem. To not have this figured out at the very beginning is just frustrating. And so I find myself not fully going into the immersive environments. I keep it a little bit out so that I have like a space right down by my stomach where I can put my phone so that I can read it. Now, there are some reports coming out that the latest 1.1 update from Apple for the Vision Pro does improve pass-through. And if that's true, it's just showing that there's software improvements that can be made, which I'm excited for, because the positive side of all of this is that this is the highest fidelity pass-through that I've ever seen. The quality of the displays that are for your eyes is fantastic. It is less noisy than the Quest 3. The resolution looks crisper. It has less noise, even if the colors are muted. It's a really weird mixed bag, but every single time I go back to the Quest 3's pass-through, I'm always disappointed. I immediately see the pixels. I immediately notice how much worse the display is because it has a third of the pixel density of the Apple Vision Pro. This is incredible at actually giving you the visual experience that you want to see, even if it's through binoculars and even if real life is a muted color. And it's so good that one of our employees here, Michael, who gets so motion sick that he cannot sit in the backseat of a car, he has to wear a Dramamine patch, he refuses to touch any other VR headset. It doesn't matter. There's just too much lag between it and reality, and his body disconnects with it. We got him on the Vision Pro, and he had no problems because of the very little latency, because of the high quality and how it actually mimics real life. Motion blur is still a problem, but that's happening in conjunction with reality being close to real through the headset. Reality doesn't hitch or hiccup or stutter like I've seen it do on the Meta Quest 3. And so it's a frustrating duality of the Apple Vision Pro. It's the best pass-through I've ever seen, but it has major work to be, it could be way better. Let's get to the third deal breaker, and that is travel mode on this is just trash. It is bad to use, and unfortunately, it's only really rated for airplanes at the current moment. And as I haven't had to fly anywhere, I haven't fully gotten to experience that. I have heard reports of people who say it's fantastic. I've heard more critical people say that it jitters quite a bit. It shouldn't be moving as much as it is, and it doesn't lock down the space as much as you would want it to. And we tried it in a vehicle, which Apple says it's not certified for. I was not driving the vehicle. I had somebody driving me around, but unfortunately, it works okay in a straight line. It is still very jittery, it bounces around, but as soon as you make any sort of turn, all of your apps just disappear. It says tracking failed, and then you have to reopen everything as soon as you get back on a straight line. And being here in the winding hills of Pennsylvania, it makes it very difficult to do any sort of work from the passenger seat, which is kind of one of the benefits of the Apple Vision Pro, is that you're theoretically going to be able to work when you're in more public spaces. Having higher fidelity screens, having more real estate to actually utilize all of your apps, and when you can't do that from the passenger seat of a vehicle, it loses some of its implications for those features. And it's so bad in the car that it is the only time that I've experienced motion sickness while using the Apple Vision Pro, because it's trying to keep things steady in travel mode, because if you don't put it in travel mode, nothing works. But when it's trying to keep things steady and you make a turn, reality also starts to hitch and bug out, where I've almost vomited from trying to use travel mode on the Apple Vision Pro in a vehicle. I have heard reports that it's better in the back seat, but unfortunately with my 6'2" frame, sitting in the back seat of every vehicle is not necessarily something that I can easily or comfortably do. But that gets me back to the positive of the fact that this thing is one of the best devices out there for having a gigantic screen with multiple elements that you can work on when you're out in public. If you're at a coffee shop, you're not going to have a better experience than just using the Apple Vision Pro. You can have so many different things open at once in spatial reality, manipulating them how you want, connected to your MacBook. You can have a movie theater wherever you want. You can experience so many things in public without disturbing the peace, busting out a triple screen laptop, that I wish it was better in other scenarios where you would want to use it in public. And no, I'm not talking about walking around out in the mall or using it while driving. All of that's stupid. Now, the number 4 deal breaker actually really doesn't have much redemption, and that is this outside screen is just really stupid. It is so dumb. Not even googly eyes. These are like felt stickers on here because of how ridiculous this actual outside screen is at trying to indicate whether you're in immersive mode or whether people can see you. I've tried so many times to make sure that it's reliable, and my eyes don't pop up every single time. And if they do, they're faint. They're hard to see. The lenticular array that actually is trying to reflect my eyes to the real world doesn't really work. I get the idea. The idea makes a lot of sense. You want people to know when you're looking at them or when you're not. But just unfortunately, with the quality of the display on the outside, it sucks. And then also finding in teardowns that it's actually a laminated glass where the lamination's on the front and can scratch very easily, which is gonna be a major problem if you scratch any of the areas near the cameras down here. That's gonna be a pricey upgrade. It's just an unfortunate thing where this doesn't have to be see-through. This doesn't have to have a screen. Maybe Apple keeps it to be better in a future iteration, but as it stands now, it is just broken, faulty, and unusable, and I have no regrets of having my little googly eyes on here. It's a gimmick of an idea. It provides absolutely no real world value. The only positive I can make from this is that on the flip side, on my side, when I'm in immersive mode and I try to look at a person and then it dissipates the fog so that I can kind of see them without breaking the rest of the immersion, that's some really good software. That makes it usable, where I can know that people are there trying to talk to me and I can see them. But again, the eyes on the outside just, it is a blown opportunity here, and the fact that Apple used it so heavily in their marketing honestly was deceptive. It's not anywhere close to being as bright, as vivid, and as clear as Apple made it in all of their promotional material. And then let's get to deal breaker number 5, and that is there are just basic quality of life things that are just missing. Like not having the ability to pin apps or pin certain things that I kind of need to know, like the time or the battery level of the device. The fact that every single time I have to look up, hit the button to drag down the little system bar, and then that's when I can get the time and the battery is incredibly frustrating. Now that's already been fixed within this first week from many different apps. There are utility widgets that I've downloaded and I use because it's such a, when I'm in an immersive environment, I still need to know what time it is for the outside world. It's very ridiculous that Apple does not have a way to kind of pin that. It boggles my mind that some stuff like that just feels like it's very entry level is not there. Additionally, there's a lot of missed opportunities on various different gestures that you can use. To get to the home menu, I either have to bring my hand up from what I'm doing and click the crown, or again, I have to look up, pinch to tap, then select the apps, and then I can go into the different things. A double tap would be great, or being able to tap on any of my other fingers, or being able to blink twice. Any sort of different way to interact with this device would be extra helpful, especially in lieu of not having controllers, and not to mention how much it can help people with physical disabilities if they could use their eyes instead of having to use fine motor control. Now, there are still like assistive touch features that Apple does include, so I want to give props to them with that, but very much like if you turn on assistive touch on an iPhone, it leaves like a perpetual little bubble on the screen that you have to kind of interact with, and it's always there, so you can do double and triple taps of your fingers to enable certain things, but you always have to have assistive touch on in order to make that happen. I'm glad it's there as an option, which tells me the software is there for them to include it. I think it should have just base level functionality, and there should be more ways of interacting with this device through your physical body than just your fingers. And then I'm also kind of frustrated about the fact that you can't install regular Apple apps. You can install iPad apps and you can install Apple Vision apps, but there are no ways to install just regular MacBook apps, especially when the fact that this is running an M2 chip. This is actually very similar hardware to what you're gonna find in a laptop. I know the experience is gonna be buggy. Let me sideload the apps, Apple. Let me install a .dmg package, please. And I know it's gonna be weird, but I can interact with it with my trackpad and my keyboard on my MacBook, or I can have my own keyboard and mouse separate, connected via Bluetooth to the computer, and I can deal with the wonkiness myself. Don't support it on your official app store. That's fine. Sideloading of apps should exist, and Apple's already going to court with the EU over things like this. To not have it on the Vision Pro just shows that they're obviously not learning their lesson. None of that matters to them unless they get forced to do it, and it's a very stupid thing that they can't include. But the positive of that, on the flip side, for day one software, this is so good. It is so intuitive. The finger tapping makes so much sense. Being able to scroll with your fingers, being able to flick things around, being able to carry your apps, being able to pull in the app close and then actually use it with a finger like it's an iPad, or being able to control multiple apps together, connecting my MacBook, and then being able to control not just my MacBook with the keyboard and trackpad that's on here, but then be able to look at Apple Vision apps and control those with the very same trackpad and keyboard, that is brilliant, just very good day one software. Like, it's likely going to get better, but the basics of the sci-fi interactivity of just kind of waving your hand around to move your computer in real physical space with the great tracking that this device has, it's beyond anything I've ever done with any Quest, any Rift device, any Vive device I've ever had. And then you have things like the fact that Siri can open up apps for you. If you just tell Siri what you want to open and you look in the physical space, it will open that app there. That is just very good. And just within the first week, the ecosystem is being built out. Steam VR is actually being implemented by various different devs. It's already in a testing procedure. There's a lot of good potential for this device. Now, that obviously is not a reason to buy it because you can't buy products based on future promises, but as somebody who's been in the VR space since the DK2 on the Oculus Rift, I love seeing things improve like this. The fact that I have a Quest 3 and I'm coming from the DK2, this is a huge jump in performance, in functionality, in software feature sets, and I want to go on that journey with Apple to see what they can build out here. That's the exciting part. It's so good at day one, I'm excited for the future. But it also offers so many things that I can do with it right now that improve my workflow. The fact that I can have a much bigger screen than my 14-inch MacBook without taking up a ton of extra real estate in my physical presence means that I can be more effective at working in different places. I'm not tied down to a desk anymore. I can be outside and get a much better experience than I otherwise would just kind of hunching down at the trackpad. And that brings me to another thing. One of the things that I'm very thankful for is just the fact that I can look at things eye level. Being able to bring the app up to where my eyes are so I don't have to crane my neck to hunch over to do different works in my lap, that's been great as well. Now, I do want to bring up a few more things that are not deal breakers, but are just like little nuisances that frustrated me, but absolutely have no bearing on like whether or not I wanted to keep this device. Number one, drinking is terrible. Trying to put a cup up to your face sucks. You need a straw. Like trying to drink my coffee every single morning results in me either accidentally hitting too hard here or having to put my coffee up right here and then kind of tilting my head back and then doing that. It's a nightmare. So straw life is definitely something you're gonna have to get used to if you wanna use this reliably and regularly during drinking intervals. Which, by the way, we're gonna be launching our coffee company, Rare Brew Coffee Co. at the end of the month on Rare Disease Day, February 29th. So mark your calendars for that. But then also iPad apps for this are significantly worse than the baked-in Apple Vision apps. It's just the hit boxes for where you need to look at are just like, they don't always register because things are too close together. So you're trying to look at like maximize the window, but it's right next to like the cog wheel on YouTube, and like just something about the interactivity on iPad apps is slightly worse. And I find myself, if I've struggled with it for more than a few seconds, I just bring the app in and I touch it, which is a good way to get around the issue. As far as crashing, I only had one crash, and that was within the first 24 hours. I had so many different apps open at the same time, and then my wife tried to FaceTime me at that exact moment, and the system freaked out and crashed. The screen went black, and I just had to reboot it. It wasn't really a problem. I haven't had many other issues or real big software glitches since then. Sometimes an app will load and then like not load fully, and then I just have to launch it one more time. It's very early software like weirdness and bugs, but it's been nothing major that's really super impeded my experience. And then the last like real negative thing I want to bring up, but is also kind of in the worst way a positive, the battery. You're gonna burn out this thing very quickly just because either you're gonna leave it plugged in nearly all of the time when you're using it at any sort of desk environment, or you're gonna let it drain and then charge it back up quite frequently because this does only get 2 to 3 hours of battery life. However, in the iFixit teardown that happened on this battery, what they found was that Apple has quoted the watt hours in this thing as being roughly 80% of the cells that are actually in here. So it does appear like Apple is building in buffer for longevity on these batteries. And in the worst way possible, iFixit did give this a 4 out of 10 provisional score, which is due to the fact that like the battery is replaceable. It twists off, you can buy a new battery. It just happens to be $200. And whether or not Apple's gonna keep it that way in the future versions of the Vision Pro, if they do have other ones, it is likely going to change based on Apple's history and track record. So right now it's good that you can replace the battery because I can see myself wearing out the cycles faster on this than any other device I have. But I can replace it, so it's not like the end of the world. And then one last just like complete positive that I want to bring up that I haven't heard many people talk about. Heat's not really an issue on this thing. Like, this is running an M2 chip, it's running an R1 coprocessor. There is a lot of activity that's going on. And sometimes I can like touch the aluminum and I'm like, oh, this is warm. And then if I like try to deflect the heat back, my forehead will start to sweat. So if I have it like accidentally blowing at the top, it does get quite warm, but the way it can sit on your face, and if you have it properly positioned, the heat ventilates away from you where it doesn't become cumbersome to wear it for a long period of time while doing rigorous activity. This thing actually stays surprisingly cool for the end user. And to just comment on the weight of the device, this isn't a deal breaker for me, neither was it really a positive. This is very comfortable. Having the solo knit bands, just the simple one without the extra loop on top, this has been very comfortable. I just wear it slightly higher on the back of my head, kind of towards the crown to make sure that it has more vertical support. I think the longest I wore this in a given day was close to 10 hours, and I had some redness on my face. My face did get a little sore, but my neck felt totally fine. My face didn't feel excessive pressure. I keep the knit band a little loose, and I don't really have a problem with the weight of this device specifically. But I understand why many other people will, especially if you have things like physical impairments in your neck or your back. That can create a lot of problems, and that unfortunately leaves this device as being suboptimal for those situations. And so my conclusion on this is just, I wanted to return it. I did not want to keep it. I thought that this was going to be Apple entering into a space that everybody else is already competing in and doing it slightly differently. But what I have found is that Apple does it majorly differently with the spatial computing, with the tracking of the apps, the fact that I can leave an app in my basement and then go up to my main floor and then everything is staying perfectly aligned. I've never seen that before in a prosumer level device. I was gonna say consumer, but it's too expensive to be. This is an enthusiast class item. This is for the innovators and the people who want to be an early adopter on the bleeding edge of tech. That's why it's so expensive. Is it worth the money? Absolutely not. But I have spent so much money on the VR space over the years that I think part of me just enjoys seeing the progress that's being made and how everything's marching forward. I love little augmented reality glasses. We've worked with various companies on that. I've loved VR gaming. Remember when NVIDIA launched NVIDIA's Funhouse in VR, and we played that at my household for weeks. Or like my wife's favorite game was playing the Valve's The Lab and doing the bow and arrow one where you shoot the little balloons. We've always had fun with VR, and I think eventually we can have fun with the VR on the Apple Vision Pro, but I think Apple is going for this being a computer first. And one of the benefits of using a computer is that it can be for work, but eventually it can also be for gaming. And so we're just kind of at the early stages of that. If we look at where things were with Oculus Rift almost a decade ago, and we look at where Apple is now, this is a very good entry point that I'm excited to be on the ride for. I'm excited to share this experience with people. With the Quest, it's always fun to like get people to play Beat Saber for the first time or do some VR experiences. But for the Apple Vision Pro, I think this can be one of those things where I share it with people and they go, oh, I can use this in a way that's not just a game. I can actually do brand new things with that. And I think we're seeing that happen, and the VR bros who just want to say the Meta Quest is better, it is for VR gaming. It absolutely, there's no question. Just buy an Oculus Quest 2 if you want the best bang for buck. You can spend a few $100 on that, get close to everything you get in the Quest 3. If you're looking to maximize your dollar, don't even look around here. But if you're looking for a fun future, Apple's doing it. But I think one of the best things is that it makes me more excited for where Meta's gonna go on the Quest 4, or maybe if they can re-envision a Pro 2. I would love to see Meta take some of the things that Apple knocked out of the park and then start doing that really well themselves. It's already been mentioned that Mark Zuckerberg thinks that they can be the Android in the VR space to Apple's Apple. And this is going to bring exciting competition that I, as an enthusiast, really want to see. So I've got the Vision Pro. I'm not returning it. It's not gonna happen. I'm keeping this. I'm gonna use it hopefully every day. And I am almost frustrated with myself that I'm saying that. But let me know if you have any questions that you want me to address on the Vision Pro down below in the comments. We've been doing a lot of short form content on this device because I've just been experiencing it so much. I'm not blind to its faults. I can see it has a lot of problems, but I'm also not blind to the fact that it has a lot of things that are exciting about it.